One. Welcome back to the Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. It's good to finally see a local sports calendar that has been full, knock on wood, the last couple of weekends. And one of the teams on that local calendar that's full is the Norwich women's hockey team. And joining us now is head coach Sophie LeClerc. Her team is 3-1. Coach, how are you?
Fantastic, Brady. It is the afternoon, isn't it? Time's flying by. Yeah. You're in season now, and you forget what it's like to be busy.
First off, how many times has somebody called you Sophie LeClerc and you've never corrected them, including me? I didn't know until recently it was pronounced LeClaire, and I feel like a schmuck.
I forgive you, number one.
Thank you.
And secondly, a lot, which is surprising. I feel like when you're in Vermont, I'm pretty safe typically, given it's French and family's been around for a little bit. So, but I, you know what? You just kind of roll with it. You can't always correct people in the moment when they're in the zone.
Your team is 3-1. You've played 4 games, all against Castleton. Do you feel like you're in a Stanley Cup playoff series against the Spartans at this point?
I know. We were joking about it. Like, we actually had another game lined up midweek, and we were kind of half kidding. Like, oh, what do we call this? Like the Central Vermont Green Mountain Cup or something? Yeah. Series. But it's pretty cool. Even told the team, it's not often you get to have this sort of series with the same team in a season. So it's unique for sure.
What's the relationship like between you and Castleton at this point? Is it a mutual respect, graciousness that we get to play? Is it a seething disdain because you're all we get to see? What's the relationship like right now?
Yeah, definitely the former. I would say we are both on the same page of the understanding that we are still in a global pandemic, and the fact that we have a team right down the road who has also been given the green light to play. It's been awesome. I feel like their coach and I have become like best friends in the past 2 weeks, even though it's brand new. Just because, every day we call each other and, hope things are still okay for the weekend. And it's awesome. Honestly, I'm not one complaint from either me or the team.
You're 3-1. That first game of the year was a loss to Castleton. You guys aren't used to losing very often. So what was it like to start off your season with a loss, which is something that is not common at Norwich?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was the best. I was thrilled. It was a great game. Castleton came out on top in overtime, which was great. It was our first game in over a year. It was the first time playing overtime 3-on-3. There was just so many firsts, including for a number of our freshmen this year, their first game ever. So it was perfect. I think it does, humble you a little bit in the best way possible, because it really does promote growth and promote the expectation that every game will be a battle.
Speaking of growth, we're in a very similar age bracket. I won't give up either one of our ages, but we're in a very similar age bracket. And I don't remember hearing much growing up about women's hockey unless it was the Olympics. That was really it. And I ask you now, even from the time you played until now, how much has the sport grown? When you go out to recruit, how many more teams are there? How many more players are there? How much has it grown?
Oh, exponentially. I can't even I played boys hockey, for example, growing up until, I believe it was almost until high school.
Wow.
Or until my parents said, no checking for you. There just wasn't anything available. And then Spalding High School locally was, just starting their girls' high school team, and it was all part of that growth. And now, the AAA teams, the AA teams, let alone the Division I, Division III growth in the NCAA world. You're seeing these young players on social media. They're not posting about just the NHL. They're posting about their favorite players that are playing professionally or for playing for their national teams. It is just the culture in general. It's just, wow, I can't even, and I think it's just scratching the surface, honestly.
How would you describe the women's game stylistically? It's not as physical as the men's game, and it's not as fast, just biologically, as the men's game. But technically, how would you describe the women's game in terms of how it's played?
Yeah, I would consider it more possession based. I think as a player and watching our team play, the physicality is always present for sure. But I would say overall, it is about possession. because we have the freedom. There's no checking. So how can we leverage that? Let's possess the puck more. Let's, we know that the constraints are different. Therefore, how do we leverage that? And I believe you can see it with possession plays, finesse plays, all over the ice.
I've always said this for a long time about women's basketball. I've always thought that because it's not as athleticism based, I thought that there are women's players that are significantly better technically than men's players. Better free throw shooting. The shots just look prettier. The passing is better and crisper. Do you see the same thing in hockey on the women's side?
Yeah, I don't know. Yes, I guess a short answer. I mean, I don't know. I haven't done the comparisons. Maybe as someone from your seat, for me, it's just I'm staring at the same, the same game. But I think again, knowing they look at it. You look at the Team USA play Team Canada. It's fast. It's north-south, and I think the players nowadays who are growing up want to emulate that.
Sophie LeClerc with us here on the Brady Farkas Show. She's the head coach Norwich women's hockey. They're going to take on Plymouth State this weekend. Finally, someone not named Castleton, so that will be nice as well. What is it like coaching in a fanless arena?
That's a good question. Actually, our kids were just talking about it the other day. It's unique. It's unique for sure. There's less interaction in general. The momentum that you feel typically in a game where the fans are behind you aren't there. I think it's a little bit different on the women's side. We're still growing the fan attendance on a day-to-day basis, but we feel it. And it was actually, last year, a year ago, almost to the day, where we were playing Amherst in the NCAA game fanless for the first time. And that, unbeknownst to us, was become the new norm creeping into this year. So I think we're accustomed to it now. Castleton was pretty cool. They had all the cutouts, and it kind of adds this, less empty feeling, but.
Very cool. I wanted to ask you about, I had something, a great, brilliant question I wanted to ask you. Oh, now I know what it was. Here we go. How good is women's hockey in this area in general? When I think about, they're not playing this year, but Plattsburgh and Middlebury also in this area. How good and how fortunate are we to have such good women's hockey programs in a relatively small area? Yeah,
extremely fortunate. I think it's just getting better. I think we're, as much as you're seeing the game grow from a player's perspective, I think you're seeing it from a coaching perspective as well, where we have female coaches that are in the industry, and growing the game from a coach's perspective. And I think we're really fortunate to have just people who love hockey in New England, and therefore there will always be the demand, and it's pretty cool. You don't have to go far to find a good opponent, a good team, or good players to continue filling those programs.
I don't know the exact number, but going up and down your roster, you have multiple Vermonters on your roster, and you played at Norwich, being a Vermonter as well. Is that important to you to have local kids, or is it just, hey, best kids wherever they are?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely the best kids, obviously, is what every coach looks for. But I'd be lying to you if I said for me it wasn't important to me. I think given my background, where I came from, and what felt like at the time very limited opportunities and very limited opportunities to be seen by prospective college coaches, that whenever a Vermonter reaches out, or whenever I get a chance to go see a high school game, it is important to me and worth the time and effort.
Is most of your recruiting at this point in the women's game, is it done through high schools? Is it done through prep schools? Is it done through club teams? Where do you watch most games from?
COVID era or
regular times?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yes to all of the above. I think every school has their little niche, I guess you could say, of where they feel they've had the most success, where there's, schools that have a relationship, alumni, et cetera, with certain programs. But outside of that, I think it's casting as big a net as possible, and leveraging what you feel you have to connect with, whether it's your background, where you played. And, in my instance, I speak French. So, okay, how can I leverage that and go into Quebec? And I think every coach in the industry has their little connection with either a coach or program, et cetera. But outside of that, it's you're all just doing the same thing and searching for the best players for your team.
It's interesting you say that. I'll get you out of here on this. I've been doing a lot of talking over the last couple of months about how UVM on the men's side is going to rebuild itself. And they hired head coach Todd Woodcroft, and he has experience coaching for Team Canada, but also with Sweden in the World Junior Championships. And you just mentioned being able to speak French. How important is the ability to be multilingual or at least have relationships with overseas places or other pockets of hockey?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's sort of low key right now how important it is. And I think there are definitely some programs who have leveraged that and have kind of put themselves in that market because of other constraints. Maybe they don't have the recruiting budget. So, okay, I'm going to solely watch film from Europe because, we can't get out there and this is where we can be better. And again, try to find a way where they can be better than the rest and kind of get the edge. And I don't know. I mean, there's not many in the NCAA on the women's side that have that secondary language or have secondary nationality. And so when you do see it, it does reflect in their roster for sure.
Sophie LeClerc, she's the head women's hockey coach at Norwich. The Cadets are 3-1. They're back on the ice this upcoming weekend. Knock on wood, all things hoping, against Plymouth State. So, Sophie, we appreciate it. Best of luck, best of health, and continued success at Norwich as well.
Thanks, Brady.